Ever heard the one about the electric truck that went downhill to stardom?
Oh, this is gonna be good.
Buckle up, because today's deep dive is all about Nikola.
The company that was gonna be the next Tesla.
That's the one.
What went wrong?
We're going to dig into that. Their audacious beginnings, their meteoric rise.
And their even faster crash back to Earth.
It's a classic story of ambition, hype, and maybe a few shortcuts taken along the way.
It's a fascinating look at, well, a lot of things.
Green tech, investor frenzy, the fine art of rolling downhill.
Don't forget the physics demonstration's gone wrong. We'll unpack what went wrong, where Nikola stands now, and what it all means for, the future of electric vehicles.
Exactly. So rewind with me to 2014. Nikola bursts onto the scene with this bold promise, electrify the trucking industry with hydrogen fuel cells.
Big promises.
Huge. They were going to take on the diesel giants, make trucking green, and investors, well, they were practically throwing money at them.
It's the Silicon Valley playbook. Charismatic leader, revolutionary idea, and a whole lot of buzz.
Right. And Nikola's early days were a whirlwind of announcements, prototypes, promises of disrupting this massive industry.
They even went public in 2020 through a SPAC.
Ah, yes, the SPAC, Special Purpose Acquisition Company.
Not exactly a household term.
Definitely not. So imagine a SPAC, like a blank check company. It goes public with one job: find a private company to merge with. Kind of like corporate speed dating, but with way higher stakes.
And a lot more paperwork.
Oh, for sure. So a SPAC lets a company, in this case, Nikola, bypass the whole traditional IPO process.
Yeah.
The one that's usually a lot slower and stricter.
Which is appealing when you're in a hurry to cash in on a trend. And back then, SPACs were red hot. Investors were throwing money at anything that promised to disrupt, well, anything, really.
And disrupt they did. Nikola partnered with this SPAC called VectoIQ, run by a former General Motors executive. Suddenly, their valuation was through the roof. I mean, they even briefly surpassed Ford in market value.
Talk about a Cinderella story.
It was more like a rookie baseball team winning the World Series in their first season. But like all good stories,
there's always a twist.
Oh, yeah. While Nikola was busy riding this wave of hype, someone was doing a little digging. Enter Hindenburg Research.
The corporate world's version of those myth-busting shows.
Exactly. They released a report in 2020 that sent shockwaves through, well, everything.
Accused Nikola of, how should we say this, embellishing their capabilities.
That's one way to put it. Hindenburg claimed Nikola overpromised and underdelivered, essentially built their entire image on smoke and mirrors.
And to back up their claims, they released this video.
Oh, you mean the infamous Nikola One truck video?
The one where it's supposedly cruising down the highway under its own power?
Yeah. That one.
Except it turns out it was just rolling downhill.
Gravity doing all the work.
Not exactly the cutting-edge technology they were promising.
You'd think a company that's claiming to revolutionize trucking would know the difference between a powered vehicle and, well, a very expensive soapbox derby car. It became the perfect metaphor for, well, Nikola's whole situation.
Yeah.
More hype than horsepower, you could say.
And the market, it didn't miss a beat.
Nope.
Nikola's stock price did a nosedive. Investors were running for the exits.
Can you blame them?
And then came the investigations. The Department of Justice, the SEC, nobody was thrilled about those empty promises.
Not a good look.
Talk about a classic case of, investor enthusiasm getting way ahead of reality.
Yeah, this wasn't just a bump in the road. This is a full-on crash.
It was. And amidst all of this, Trevor Milton, the founder, he steps down.
And later faced fraud charges, if I recall correctly.
You do. And that partnership with General Motors, the one that was supposed to be their saving grace.
Poof.
Vanished. It went from the next Tesla to, well, let's just say the ending wasn't as glamorous.
More like a cautionary tale, really.
Speaking of cautionary tales, let's talk about where Nikola lands today.
Their latest annual report, it reads a bit like a country music song.
Oh, how so?
Full of heartbreak, debt, and a whole lot of wishing things were different.
Well, you're not wrong. Their financials aren't exactly something you'd frame and hang on a wall.
More like something you'd stuff in a drawer and hope nobody ever finds.
Their assets, they've taken a hit. Cash reserves are dwindling, and don't even get me started on that mountain of debt.
So to put it delicately, they're hanging on by a thread.
A very thin, very frayed thread. And the question is, are they still chasing that hydrogen dream? Or have they come back down to Earth?
It's a good question. I mean, the idea of hydrogen-powered trucks still sounds pretty futuristic, right?
It does. But it's a long road to get there. And Nikola, well, They're trying to juggle that while also keeping their electric truck dreams alive.
Sounds like a lot to handle.
It is. They're pushing ahead with their hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, those FCEVs, as they call them. Right. And they even shipped a few to customers this year. But scaling up production, that's a whole other beast.
Speaking of scaling up, what about those pilot tests? The ones with Walmart and TTSI. Weren't those a big deal?
They were supposed to be. Putting their trucks through their paces in the real world. You know, actual trucking.
Makes sense. How'd that go?
Let's just say there were a few, shall we say, learning experiences.
Uh-oh. Learning experiences. That doesn't sound promising. What happened?
It turned out those trucks, they weren't quite ready for the long haul. Literally.
Oh boy.
Range issues, charging infrastructure problems. Back to the drawing board for those.
So hydrogen is still on the table, but what about their bread and butter electric trucks?
The ones that don't require a degree in chemistry to refuel, still in that game.
Good. How are those doing?
Well, it's a crowded market.
A lot of competition.
A lot. And Nikola, they're playing catch-up. They did manage to make over 100 Tre BV trucks at their Arizona factory.
Hey, that's something, right?
It's more than they made last year.
That's got to count for something.
Sure. But their goal is to be producing 20,000 trucks a year.
Okay, so 100 is a good start, but
Yeah.
20,000, that's ambitious.
To put it mildly, it's like trying to, I don't know, fill a swimming pool with a teaspoon.
All right, so let's recap. Their finances are shaky, their hydrogen dreams are facing some turbulence, and their electric truck production is more like a trickle than a flood. What's the verdict? Are they just clinging to life support?
That's the million-dollar question.
Do they have a shot at turning things around,
Well, they do have a product.
even if it is a little behind the curve?
Even then. And they've got a manufacturing facility.
Though it's still a work in progress, right?
That's true. And they even have a tiny sliver of market share.
It's a start.
It is. So do they have a chance? It's hard to say. But they're not out of the game yet.
So what's their game plan for a comeback? What do they need to do to make this happen?
Let's just say they're not calling up a Hall of Fame quarterback for this comeback.
So no miracle plays. What needs to happen?
Yeah.
Realistically.
Well, they need to start with regaining investor trust.
That's easier said than done, right? After, well, everything that's happened.
It's a tall order, like trying to convince someone to invest in your business idea after your last one flopped.
Okay, so say they do manage to win back some trust. What's next on the to-do list?
They've got to prove their tech actually works.
And not just in a flashy YouTube video.
Right. We're talking real-world testing. Getting those trucks out there, hauling freight, actually proving they're more than just prototypes with a good PR team.
No more downhill demos allowed.
Exactly. But remember, they've also gone all in on hydrogen. And that's a gamble.
Because building that hydrogen refueling network, that's not easy. Or cheap.
It's like opening a chain of restaurants with zero guarantee anyone will actually eat there.
And hoping people even like the food, right?
Right. They're at the mercy of so many things they can't control.
Like what?
Government regulations, infrastructure development. They need a good dose of luck at this point. It's like they're building the plane while they're flying it.
And convincing the passengers everything's fine.
That the wings are supposed to flap like that. But it highlights just how tough it is for Nikola right now.
Even if they do get everything figured out, they're still up against some serious competition.
Oh, absolutely. The EV market, it's not slowing down for anyone. Tesla, Daimler, even the traditional automakers, they're all making big moves in electric trucks.
So not only do they have to run their own race, they've got to outrun everyone else too.
Pretty much. And they need to have something truly groundbreaking to stand out.
It's a long shot. They're up against the clock, the competition, maybe even their own history. So what do you think? Is Nikola a cautionary tale, or can they actually pull off a comeback?
Honestly, it's anyone's guess. Only time will tell. But their story, it's a fascinating look at, well, a lot of things. The ups and downs of green tech, the power of ambition, and just how hard it is to turn a big dream into reality.
That's for sure. Well, on that note, we'll leave our listeners with plenty to think about.
Will Nikola rise again? Will hydrogen fuel cells be the next big thing? Who knows? But we'll be keeping a close eye on it all.
And we'll be back next time to break down whatever happens. Until then, keep those engines running.
And stay curious.